So flavorings are next as regards our additives, and these don't get an E number at all. They have to be called by name on the ingredients list so that there is no ambiguity as to what they are or why they're there. Okay, and the reason that flavorings are added to food is number one, it adds flavor, as the name suggests, but it also replaces flavorings that may be lost during processing. So the likes of canning with high temperatures or ultra processed foods like easy singles, that kind of thing, they've been so changed that some of the original flavor may be gone. So they add in flavorings then to make up for that. So like before, we have two types. We have natural flavorings and we have artificial flavorings, which scientists have mimicked or copied based on perhaps natural flavorings. So our natural ones, like the preservatives, are sugar and salt, as well as herbs and spices. So sugar, we know, comes from sugarcane or sugar beet, and you'll find it in breakfast cereals. If you look at some of the nutrient lists on the side of the breakfast box, it's quite a high amount of sugar. You find it in yogurts. If it's 0% fat, you'll find that they'll have added a lot of sugar as well, because without the fat, there's no flavor, for instance. Okay, but sugars can be hidden in a lot of foods, as we were talking before about, say, the convenience soups or that foods that you wouldn't expect to see sugar in. So it's always important that we do read our labels, etc. Salt is the next one, and the chemical name for that is sodium chloride, as we know, and you'd find it in salted butter and cheeses as well. Cheese, as you know, the regarding of the processing of cheese, salt is important to draw the whey out of the solid curd, but it also adds flavoring as well. Herbs then come from plants, so your herbs might be basil, oregano, etc. They're found in stock cubes. What else? Dried soups, anything that may be lacking flavor, they would add it in. And spices, similar. Okay, so your ginger, your cinnamon, etc. as well. And they are found in sauces. They're found in seasonings. There's one there, the Chinese 5-spice would be an example there. So there are natural ones. A couple of those you could overlap perhaps with maybe our preservatives, sugar and salt, and then it's less to learn. And then our artificial ones. So you can see that lovely cake there, Battenberg. It doesn't look the most natural of things as regards colorings. And as you know, if you've ever had any of those kind of cakes, the flavor intensity of them as well can be quite strong. So our first type of an artificial flavoring are called esters. So the example here are amyl acetate. And when this is added, it gives a pear flavoring. And this is originated in a lab where there was a chemical reaction between heating vinegar or acetic acid and a type of ethyl alcohol. Okay, and what you end up is with pear flavored sweets. So your pear drops, they're probably not the most popular things, but they do exist. Another type of ester are ethyl acetates, so as opposed to amyl acetates in the first one. Okay, and this is a rum flavoring. So it gives you the flavor of the alcohol without the alcohol, I suppose, would be the thinking behind this. And again, this is a chemical reaction in a laboratory, and this results from heating vinegar with ethyl alcohol. Okay, so obviously varying amounts giving you different results. And your example there is rum essence. So any of these essences you'd find to put in cakes, a lot of these would originate here. The next one is aldehydes. So benzaldehydes, for example. So almond flavoring, cherry flavoring. So if you were making a Battenberg, if you were making Bakewell tarts, you would use a bit of almond flavoring. It's readily available in supermarkets. And after vanilla, almond would probably be one of the more popular ones. Cherry flavorings that might go into cakes. It might go into cough sweets like your soothers, cherry cola, etc. And these happen because of the oxidation or the burning of energy for energy of benzyl alcohol. Okay. And almond essence, almond flavored cakes, and cherry flavored sweets would be examples in its use. And then another type of aldehydes are maltols. And this adds the smell of freshly baked bread to foods. And they often pump these out as well in supermarkets to give you the more intense smell of freshly baked bread and maybe lure you into buy. And this comes from a tree called the larch. There's lots of larch hedge rows around the place, and it comes from the bark of that. Okay. And this would be used in breads and cakes. So there's some new ones there as regards the artificial. You might want to stop me now again and maybe take a couple of notes on that yourselves. Maybe do little kind of flow charts. So start off with flavorings artificial at the top and go into your esters, and then divide again into amyl acetate and ethyl acetate, and go down again, saying where they originate from and their uses, and then go back up again and start with your aldehydes and branch off into benzaldehydes and your maltols, and go down again with your origins and uses. Okay, so they're your flavorings. As I said, no E numbers. They have to go there in their full words. Now, flavor enhancers, these are quite controversial, and these do get an E number. So the E600s to 699s, probably the most common one that we hear about is monosodium glutamate. And this has been, I suppose, targeted over many, many years, even when I was in school back in the last century, literally. Monosodium glutamate was involved or included in Tayto crisps. And I remember there was a postal, what's the word I'm looking for? Everyone wrote in asking for Tayto to take out, I should say, monosodium glutamate from their products, which they did at the time. Okay, but it's still included. Chinese food would be a big one, and people can be quite sensitive or allergic even to your monosodium glutamates. Okay, so what it is it's a flavor enhancer. It doesn't flavor the food, it just enhances or improves what's already there, and it makes it seem that it's stronger or more intense. So MSG, it's a sodium salt, hence the word sodium is in the name, and it comes from something called glutamic acid, which is an amino acid. Okay, so it's protein derived. It's not a protein as such, but it's protein derived, and it's used in stock cubes, snack foods like crisps, and as I said, they're Chinese foods. Would be a big one. So if you are sensitive, some people get itchy skin, some people swell up or get tingly because of sensitivity to it. Always check the labels. Again, it comes back to being wise as a consumer and checking your labels, etc. Okay, so again, any questions, you can message me, or if there's something you need clarity on, let me know on Thursday. Okay, so I was going to check my time. How are we going? We're doing okay. So our coming up to the end now, we're going to look at physical conditioning agents. Okay, and these improve the physical condition, the actual feel or the structure of the food itself. And these have E numbers 400 to 499. Okay, so if it was a powder, it would stop it lumping together. If it was a liquid or a kind of the words are gone today. If it was a substance like mayonnaise, it would stop it from separating, etc. So there are different types. Okay, so again, this is new, it's higher level only. So if you are taking ordinary level, you can switch me off. All right, but anyway, so humectants is first, humectants. And these prevent food from losing moisture or drying out. Okay, so if you had a cake and it was kind of a longer life, you wouldn't want it to dry out by the time the consumer got to open it. So humectants would be added. So two examples of humectants are sorbitol and mannitol. Okay, and their origin, I should say, is lichens or lichens, which we looked at the last day. So we saw them here. They're a plant found on rocks or trees made of fungus or algae. Okay, so just keep coming back to that. And you'd find humectants in marzipan or cakes. So you wouldn't want it to dry out because it would just diminish the quality and people wouldn't buy the product. Now, emulsifiers we have come across before. If you'd like to go back to your lipids section of your book, emulsification was one of the properties. So it's able to hold two immiscible liquids together. So in mayonnaise, it's oil and vinegar held together with egg yolk. And it's the emulsifier in egg yolk, lecithin, that stops the oil and vinegar from separating out because we know that they don't normally mix. So these emulsifiers, as the name suggests, forms emulsions. So lecithin we've looked at before in egg yolks, and as I said, go back to your lipid section if you're unsure. You'd have notes in your copy as well. I would have done that part on the board. And the example there is your mayonnaise. Okay. Another emulsifier that we may not be too familiar with is alganates, and these originate from seaweed. So we talked about this before in the ice cream as well. You'd find alganates in your chewing gum and in your dairy spreads as well to stop them from the quality of the food diminishing or becoming less. So as you go through this, you can stop and start and make sense of it. Okay. The next one then is your anti-caking agents, and the correct name for these are polyphosphates. And these, as again, stop lumping or anti-caking in a dried food. And the ingredients here would be, an example would be magnesium carbonate. Okay, they're derived or originate in laboratories, so they're laboratory produced chemical. And you'd find them in the likes of Betty Crocker cake mixes, chocolate milk powder, so you have your Nesquik up there at the top, and it stopped them. If you opened that up and it was all lumped together, you wouldn't like it. So these anti-caking agents stop that from happening. Setting agents then help set foods. Okay, so they act as a setting agent, and we've come across this before as regards jam making. Pectin is our setting agent here. It's found in fruits. They have varying degrees. Some have high pectin, medium pectin, low pectin. You can buy pectin in a jar or a bottle, and you can also buy pectin coated sugar for jam making as well, Sure Set, and we've looked at that before. So again, always make your links between different parts of the course. And our examples there are jams and marmalades. So if you look at your jam jar, you will see that perhaps it may not be listed, but pectin would be part of the fruit. Okay. And finally, then, as regards our physical conditioning agents, stabilizers. So to stabilize something means to keep them as is, not to allow it to, separate out perhaps. So emulsions, stabilizers stop emulsions from separating. You can underline that. So carrageenan comes from seaweed moss, and we looked at that before. They're related to the alganates, and ice cream would be your example there. And then guar gum comes from guar plants, which are grown in exotic parts of the world, and they would be found in yogurts. I know that they're also found in chewing gum as well. So there's a picture there of your carrageenan, it's dried seaweed, and there is your guar plant as well. Okay, so the parts are extracted, and they're great for stabilizing. It's the gel kind of substances in them. Okay. So what's so good and what's so bad about adding food additives to foods? They increase variety. So imagine if we weren't able to preserve foods with salt and sugar, etc., we would be very limited and waiting for certain times of year to come around for food availability. Preservatives and antioxidants reduce the rate at which food spoils, which extends the shelf life. Preservatives reduce the risk of food poisoning because bacterial growth, too much sugar, too much salt. If you remember back there, 65% sugar in jam, bacteria can't cope. They're killed off, okay, by osmosis. Preservatives and antioxidants prevent food waste, which is a big thing, especially in the world today, as food doesn't go off so quickly. In Ireland, on average, €600 a year is wasted on food going out in the bin, which is ridiculous. Colorings enhance the color of food and makes its appearance more appetizing, so you're able to say, oh, that looks nice, and eat it. Flavorings improve the overall taste of food. Nutritional additives enhance the nutritional value, so it's better for us. And physical conditioning agents then improve the texture. So think back of your powdered milks or your ice cream, etc. But some people, particularly children, have negative reactions to additives, so hyperactivity or migraines. Little is known about the cocktail. So if you take a combination, what will happen to us, maybe not just today, but over time, if we continue to take them in. Additives can deceive consumers, so we might be misled about the color or flavor of a food. For example, some commercial carrot cake mixes contain no carrots. Instead, they contain carrot-flavored pieces, and that comes back to reading your ingredients lists. Additives like aspartame may be carcinogenic. There's no proof, but they have been studies done, and some additives destroy the nutrient content of foods. For example, sulfur dioxide destroys B group vitamins in food, so that's reducing the nutrient. So finally, then you can have a read over the legal controls. We will do this in the live class as well. I'll just go back over it on Thursday. I'm just running out of time in my 15 minutes. And then if there's any questions, you can ask me. So in Ireland, it's the FSAI, and we are completely governed by the EU then as well. So as I said, have a read, and I will post some work up in the group as well. All right, thank you.